Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the champions who deal the most damage per game on average. I thought it'd be interesting to make this video because I'm one of those players who likes to check who does the most damage after every single game. I find it a pretty interesting stat, and usually the champion who does deal the most damage ends up carrying the game, or they are the champion who did carry the game. It's not always like that, but most of the time, the player who does deal the most damage is the player most responsible for that team winning the game. I did have a bit of a criteria when making this video. It wasn't really too much, but the champion did have to have above a 1% pick rate, because there are a few champions who have like a 0.3% pick rate that do like a load of damage, but they're not played a lot, so I didn't want to include them on this list. So with that being said guys, let's get into the video. So first up in the top lane is not a champion that I expected to be on here, but it's Teemo. So Teemo does deal the most damage for any top laner, and I would assume that this is AP Teemo instead of AD Teemo, because the most popular Teemo build right now, I think it is the Frozen Mallet into like Rune-Ins and then Gunblade, but I feel like that build isn't what is doing the most damage for Teemo. I feel like the highest damage build right now for Teemo is when you go like a Gunblade, a Leandries, just like full AP Teemo, and I could see him dealing a lot of damage late game, like with his shrooms. If the enemies do step on them, like he gets a nice AoE shroom off, that's like a load of damage right there, and then his poison will also do quite a bit of damage. So I really did not expect him to be at the #1 spot here, but I can definitely see why he could, or why he does deal a load of damage. So the two honorable mentions for the top lane are Illaoi and Gangplank. Now Illaoi and Gangplank, they're pretty self-explanatory as to why they deal a load of damage. Gangplank mainly because of his barrels and his ultimate. He does so much AoE damage with those two abilities. And then Illaoi, pretty much the same thing, like her ultimate and her tentacles just do so much in teamfights. If you get like a nice ultimate off with Illaoi and your tentacles just go ham on the opponents, then you're going to just single-handedly carry a teamfight and deal a load of damage. So I think that I could more see like Illaoi and Gangplank being on this list, but Teemo definitely surprised me for sure. So starting it off in the jungle, the highest damage jungler with over like a 1% pick rate is Graves. Now Graves, he does a load of damage because he is like basically an AD carry in the jungle, and all three of the champions here that do the most damage for junglers are AD carry type junglers. So the #1 is Graves, and then the honorable mentions are Kog'Maw and Twitch. Now Kog'Maw, I thought he would be at the #1 spot here, but he is at the #2 spot. He still deals so much damage though once you get like Blood Razor on Kog'Maw and on Twitch as well, and once you get to your core item build, then you can do so much in those team fights, and mainly because they are like AD carry junglers, that's why they do deal a load of damage. So in the mid lane at the #1 spot is Karthus. So Karthus does have actually a pretty high win rate right now for the mid lane. He's had a good win rate these past few patches. I'm pretty sure he's above like 53% every single patch, but he just doesn't see a whole lot of play at all. He can carry a game really hard though if the Karthus does know what he's doing, and he can get into the middle of a team fight with his E active, pop Zhonya's, and his E just keeps melting the opponents. Then he can just deal so much damage in team fights, and then once he does die, he just throws his ultimate down, and that's so much damage right there. If your ultimate is like max rank and you have some AP, then you're dealing around like 600 or 700 damage, maybe even more, to every single target on the enemy team. Now of course the enemy could have like a Banshees or a Zhonya's, but if they don't have those items, then every single team fight you're going to deal so much damage with him, which is why he is taking this #1 spot, and it's why he does deal the most damage for any mid laner. And taking the honorable mentions for the mid lane are two champions that I think are really top tier right now for the mid lane, and those champions are Ziggs and Vel'Koz. If you guys have not picked up these champions yet this patch, then I would highly recommend it. They're topping the charts like on damage dealt right now. They also do have pretty high win rates. Vel'Koz is the highest win rate for any mid lane champion, so if you're not playing Vel'Koz yet, then I don't really know what you're doing. You're kind of throwing away some free loot right now, because I think that Vel'Koz, he's probably going to get nerfed soon. He's even started to see play in the LCS now, and I think that with like other mid laners getting nerfed, like Azir, Victor, like it just allows Vel'Koz to rise in power and be a really strong pick right now. The reason they do a ton of damage are mainly because all of their abilities are AoE abilities. Like not a single one of their abilities are like single target. They have 4 damage abilities each, so it just allows them to get so much damage off in team fights. The number 1 spot for AD carry is really no surprise, and it's Kog'Maw. So Kog'Maw, the amount of damage you can do with your W active in the mid to late game is just really crazy. Once you do get a few items on him, like the Runanes, and once you have like your Rage Blade and your Blade of the Ruined King, then you're basically unstoppable. If you can survive for more than a few seconds in team fights, then you're going to melt squishy targets. You're even going to be able to melt the tanks because you have the percentage health damage coming out of your W and then Blade of the Ruined King as well. So as long as you can position well with Kog'Maw, then you're probably going to top the charts in most damage dealt like pretty much every single game. The honorable mentions for AD carry go to Ez and Jhin. So the reason I think Ez does do more damage than some of the other AD carries is because he is a poke AD carry. His Q can deal damage from a pretty long range, and he's not someone like a Vayne or like a Sivir who needs to get really up close to deal damage. He can sit back, poke with his Q, and I think that's the main reasons to why he does do a load of damage. And then Jhin, he can do so much just in team fights, like with his auto attacks, and he can also do a lot like with his ultimate before a team fight even starts. So he's got a lot of ways that he can deal damage. Like he can deal damage from a long range with his ult, and then in team fights he can auto attack and deal a load of damage with his 4th shot crit as well. So starting it off at the number 1 spot for support is Vel'Koz. So all 3 of these support champions are champions that can also be played in the mid lane, but they are played in the support role, and they pretty much do go full damage even though they are support, because that's how you're going to carry the game with these champions. The 2 honorable mentions are Brand and Zyra. So these are pretty self-explanatory to why they deal a load of damage. All 3 of these champions do have a lot of AoE damage. The Zyra ultimate, Zyra E, Zyra Q, and then Brand also does good AoE damage with his W and his ultimate, and then I already talked about Vel'Koz before. So I actually do see sometimes that these support champions actually end up dealing more damage than their AD carry. Usually, I remember a few patches ago, like when Zyra was really popular, she would always have most damage dealt in the game, which is insane considering that you're not CSing with these champions, you're not having very good gold income, and yet you can still deal the most damage in the game, which is really insane in my opinion. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. Hopefully you did find it interesting. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below of some champions that you thought were going to be on this list, or some champions that you didn't think were going to be on the list. I definitely did not think that Teemo would be on this list, let alone at the number 1 spot for top lane. So with all that being said, guys, thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.